Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Have you ever opened up a massive business spreadsheet and felt that immediate universal panic of just staring at an endless wall of numbers? Yeah, we've all been there. Today, we're figuring out how to transform those raw, unorganized numbers into a vital business survival tool belt. We're going to break down the exact characteristics that take your accounting from a confusing math exercise and turn it into a strategic powerhouse.
Which brings up a really interesting question for anyone running a business. Is your financial data actually valuable, or is it just causing chaos? Let's be real. So often we collect data just for the sake of collecting it. But a massive pile of numbers isn't an asset if it doesn't give us clarity. If your current reporting feels more like a confusing puzzle than a clear roadmap, well, the data just isn't doing its job.
So here's the core insight we're exploring today. Raw data is totally, fundamentally useless. It's just noise until it passes a specific 6-trait checklist. You can literally have the most complex spreadsheets in the world, but without these 6 qualitative characteristics, they just don't mean much. But when data does possess these traits, it becomes actionable. It unlocks business success, helps secure financing, and tells you exactly where you've been and where you need to go next.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. Understandable and useful. Building the internal foundation.
The very first trait your data must have is that it's, well, understandable. Accounting information needs to be presented in a way that is easily comprehensible, avoiding overly technical details. It really shouldn't be a foreign language that only a CPA can translate. It needs to be clear, clean, and accessible, especially for small business owners who might not have a formal accounting background. Look, if you have to spend an hour deciphering a single report, that report is failing you.
So, the crucial takeaway here is this. Absolutely no accounting degree is required to run a successful business, provided your data is understandable. This trait ensures you're empowered. You need to be able to actually read your own reports without drowning in jargon. You own the business, right? So you should own the numbers. Demanding understandable data puts you firmly in the driver's seat.
And that leads us right into the second trait, usefulness. Having understandable data is great, but the financial information provided must also be directly applicable to the specific business decisions at hand. Information is only valuable if it directly applies to the specific choices you are making right now. I mean, if a report is super easy to read but tells you absolutely nothing about that equipment purchase you need to make tomorrow, its usefulness is essentially zero.
It's definitely worth looking at our own reports this week and asking, can we actually use this to make a decision today? Looking at the bottom line, tracking your expenses, does it actually drive immediate practical action? If we look at a metric and say, oh, that's nice to know, but it doesn't change how we operate, we probably need to reevaluate why we're tracking it in the first place. Useful data forces a decision. Moving right along, Section 2, Relevance and Reliability. Applying data with confidence.
All right, trait number 3 is relevance. For data to be truly relevant, the information should relate to a specific time period or particular business functions. Context is absolutely everything when looking at numbers. A random revenue figure means nothing if we don't know if it was generated in a week, a month, or a whole year. Or, for that matter, which specific department generated it. Relevance gives your numbers their necessary context.
What's really interesting here is how relevance becomes absolutely essential for accurate trend analysis. When your data is tied to specific time periods, you can actually compare historical and current data. You get to see the actual trajectory of your business. Are sales trending up in Q3 compared to last year? Are expenses creeping up in one specific business function? You can only answer those critical questions if your data is highly relevant and clearly defined by time and function.
Which brings us to reliability. The data absolutely must present an accurate and dependable picture of the company's financial health. Guys, this is an absolute non-negotiable need. If your numbers are just rough guesses, or if you're missing receipts and kind of eyeballing expenses, your data isn't reliable. And actually, unreliable data is way worse than no data at all, because it can lead you to make totally disastrous decisions based on a false sense of security.
Let's raise the stakes even further here. The source material highlights that reliability is particularly critical when owners use the information to secure external financing. Think about it. If you want a bank loan, a line of credit, or an investor, they're going to ruthlessly scrutinize your financial health. Reliability is the ultimate key to unlocking that external financing. The bank needs to know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the picture you're presenting is 100% dependable.
All right, Section 3, Comparable and Consistent, the Market and the Future.
Trait number 5 on our checklist is comparable. This characteristic allows business owners to evaluate their company's performance against competitors or industry leaders. Because let's face it, you don't operate in a vacuum. You need to gauge how well you operate under certain market conditions relative to everyone else out there. If your profit margin is 10%, is that amazing or is it terrible? You really only know if your data is comparable to the rest of your industry.
So, how exactly do we make sure our data is comparable? Well, by using standard accounting principles. Trying to compare a solitary business to an industry leader is basically impossible if you're both just making up your own accounting rules. But if everyone prepares their financial statements according to standard accounting principles, this vital comparison becomes so much easier. It levels the playing field so you can truly measure your performance against the absolute best in the business.
And that brings us to our final trait, consistent. This means financial transactions must be recorded in the same manner over time. It's all about establishing a solid process and sticking to it without exception. You can't categorize an expense one way in January and then handle it a completely different way in February. If you start constantly shifting the rules of how you record things, the integrity of your reporting just falls apart entirely.
Think of it like this. When you handle inventory purchases the exact same way yesterday, today, and tomorrow, you build a continuous narrative and perfectly accurate historical records. When the process is identical every single time you buy inventory, your data flows seamlessly. You create a reliable, rock-solid history that you can trust implicitly. Plus, there's a highly practical, massive time-saving bonus to this. Consistency literally limits the amount of journal entries you have to manage in your general ledger. When you have a consistent system, you aren't stuck making endless corrections or custom entries for every single transaction. It completely streamlines your accounting, reduces the chance for human error, and just saves you incredible amounts of time.
Which leads us to our final stop, Section 4, the ultimate business advantage. Equipping your tool belt.
When we put it all together, the 6 traits of highly valuable data are understandable, useful, relevant, reliable, comparable, and consistent. If any single one of these traits is missing, your foundation has a crack in it. But when your data possesses all 6, this complete tool belt becomes the true foundation of your decision-making and ultimately your key to business survival.
I'll leave you with this final thought. Is your data a real tool for survival, or is it just a pile of numbers taking up space on a hard drive? It is absolutely worth taking a hard look at our own accounting practices today through this lens and making the changes necessary to unlock the true power of our financial data. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I can't wait to guide you through our next topic.